Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Thabita Arker. Let's begin. Once a jewel of leisure and community pride in Bafut, Saboga Gardens now stands as a silent witness to the scars of conflict in Ambazonia, where laughter once danced beneath the open sky and footsteps wander through emerald path of calm. Saboga Gardens now whispers only to the wind. In the heart of Bafut, it once bloomed with life, a sanctuary of shade and song, where families gathered, where stories were shared, and where the land itself seemed to breathe peace. Visitors arrived with wonder in their eyes, drawn by the gentle beauty of its lawns and the quiet promise of rest beneath its trees. For decades, it stood not merely as a garden, but as a living symbol of community and pride. Yet, time and turmoil have written a different story entirely. The long shadow of the Ambazonia crisis crept across the hills, emptying homes, scattering voices, and silencing the joyful rhythm of daily life. Slowly the gates of Saboga closed to footsteps and laughter. Now the grass grows wild where children once played. Walls crumble where memories once stood tall. Paths that welcome travelers are hidden beneath neglect. What was once a vibrant heaven for relaxation and culture now rests in quiet ruin, a fading portrait of beauty, and a reminder of the peace that once flourished in Bafut. Now with this, we head on to the headlines on Undaunted tonight. And these are the prime headlines on Undaunted tonight. Ambazonia's separatist commander General Jagaband killed in Bafut by colonial French Cameroon military. Cardinal Turkson urges the Cameroons to present reconciliation calendar to Pope Leo XIV during April visit. Also tonight, to take a look at historic Saboga Gardens in Bafut falls into ruins amid Ambazonia crisis. Also tonight, explosion reported in St. Joseph Catholic High School in Bamenda, Ambazonia. Also tonight, looking at reports coming in from the global scene. Kenya secures deal with Russia to halt recruitment of Kenyan fighters for Ukraine war. Also tonight, U.S. launches Section 301 investigation into South Africa and 59 other countries. With this, we head on to the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. residents of Umfoya and Akosia in Bafut have reported intense gunfire in the areas, raising concerns about escalating tensions in the region. Local sources say the sound of sustained gunshots was heard across several neighborhoods, forcing many residents to remain indoors for safety. The areas of Umfoya and Akosia are widely regarded as strongholds for the Ambazonian State Army, aligned with the Ambazonian Liberation Movement. According to local sources, the clashes involve the Ambazonian State Army, described as part of the Ambazonian State Army confronting government forces for harassment. Community members say the fighting is part of a broader and long-standing conflict in Ambazonia, where many residents have faced years of political marginalization, discrimination, and neglect. Some local voices argue that people in these regions have often felt treated like strangers in their own country, citing concerns over limited political representation, language barriers in state institutions, and perceived economic and social exclusions. Supporters of the Ambazonian movement say the Ambazonian State Army see themselves as defending their communities and protecting civilians from what they describe as the authority of a colonial-style administration. Government authorities, however, have consistently maintained that the operations are aimed at restoring order and combating what they tag as armed separatist groups. As of now, details about casualties or the extent of damage remain unclear. Residents say the situation remains volatile, with reports of sporadic gunfire continuing in parts of Bafut. Authorities have not yet released an official statement regarding the reported clashes. The situation remains tense as residents continue to monitor development and await further updates. Now, moving ahead, bringing you over to this report coming in from the home front. Cardinal Turkson has called on colonial French Cameroonian authorities to present a symbolic reconciliation calendar to Pope Leo XIV during the Pontiff's upcoming visit to French Cameroon in April. Speaking on the sidelines of celebrations marking the 70th anniversary of the Archdiocese of Douala, the Ghanaian Cardinal said the most meaningful gift the country could offer the Pope would be a concrete reconciliation program addressing the ongoing crisis in Ambazonia. Cardinal Turkson, who will be part of the Pope's delegation during the visit, noted that international coverage of French Cameroon is largely dominated by the crisis in Ambazonia. He urged the government and citizens to seize the opportunity of the papal visit to demonstrate a renewed commitment to peace. Meanwhile, according to the Cardinal, presenting a reconciliation calendar would symbolize a clear roadmap toward resolving the conflict and restoring unity in the country. The challenge for Cameroonian authorities, Turkson said, is to present as a gift to the Holy Father a reconciliation program for French Cameroon. Meanwhile, the Apostolic Nunciature to Cameroon has clarified that access to all liturgical celebrations during the Pope's visit will be completely free. In a statement released on March 16th, the Nunciature emphasized that faithful will be able to participate in holy masses to be celebrated by the Bishop of Rome in Yaoundé, Bamenda, and Douala without any payment. Church authorities stressed that the visit is primarily spiritual and ecclesiastical in nature, urging Catholics to focus on spiritual preparation in line with the teachings of the Church. The clarification comes amid social media rumors claiming that tickets were being sold for seats at the papal event. Pope Leo XIV is expected to visit French Cameroon from April 15 to April 18, 2026, in what church leaders describe as a significant pastoral mission aimed at strengthening faith and encouraging peace and reconciliation in the country. Also tonight, Saboga. We are heading over to Saboga, which was once celebrated as a vibrant recreational and cultural landmark. The historic Saboga Gardens in Bafut now lies in ruins, a shadow of the beauty and significance it once held for the people of Ambazonia. For decades, Saboga Gardens served as a cherished destination for relaxation, community gatherings and tourism. The lush landscape and serene atmosphere made it a place of pride for residents of Bafut and visitors from across the region. However, years of instability linked to the ongoing crisis in Ambazonia have taken a heavy toll on the site. With many residents displaced and economic activities disrupted, the gardens were gradually abandoned. What was once a flourishing attraction has deteriorated into overgrown grounds and crumbling structures. Local residents recall that even as late as 2010, Saboga Gardens remained a beautiful sight to behold. Families, youth, and visitors continued to frequent the area, enjoying its natural scenery and tranquil environment. The passing of its founder in 2007 marked a turning point, after which maintenance and development efforts slowed. As the crisis deepened in subsequent years in Ambazonia, attention shifted to survival and security, leaving the gardens neglected. Today, only remnants of the once great Saboga Gardens remain silent witnesses to a past many young people may never fully know or even understand. For all the residents, the ruins evoke memories of better days and serve as a reminder of how conflict and crisis can raise not only livelihoods, but also cultural and historical spaces that once united communities. Community leaders and residents hope that one day peace will return to the region, creating an opportunity to restore Saboga Gardens and preserve its legacy for future generations. Also tonight, a disheartening situation. An explosion was reported in the early hours of the morning at St. Joseph Catholic High School in Bayile, Bamenda, causing damage within the school premises. According to preliminary information from local residents, the incident occurred at approximately 2 a.m. The blast reportedly caused structural damage to parts of the schools around there, though details regarding the extent of the destruction and whether there were many or even any casualties remain unclear. At the time of this report, no group or individuals have been officially identified as responsible for the incident. Authorities and community members are still assessing the situation, while investigations are expected to determine the cause of the explosion. The incident has raised concern among residents in Bamenda, particularly given the security situation in Ambazonia in recent years. Schools and public institutions have occasionally been affected by the ongoing crisis, heightening fears about safety in the community. Local sources say the event has sparked speculation among residents about who might be responsible, though no verified claims have been confirmed. Community leaders have called for calm while awaiting credible information from relevant authorities and urged that the incident be thoroughly investigated to establish the fact. More details are expected to emerge as information becomes available. Nowadays, we'll be heading over to news reports coming in across the globe. Kenya has announced that Russia has agreed to stop recruiting Kenyan nationals into its armed forces, following growing concern that hundreds of Kenyans had been drawn into the war in Ukraine. The announcement was made in Moscow by Musalia Mudavadi, Kenya's cabinet secretary for foreign and diaspora affairs, after talks with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. Mudavadi said the two sides reached an understanding that will prevent Kenyan citizens from joining the Russian military through the country's defense ministry. Speaking after the meeting, Mudavadi noted that the decision was aimed at addressing concerns raised by Kenyan authorities about the recruitment of its citizens into a foreign conflict. According to him, the agreement means Russian authorities will no longer accept Kenyan nationals seeking to enlist their armed forces. The development follows mounting alarm within Kenya after security agencies reported earlier this year that a significant number of Kenyans had been recruited to fight on the Russian side of the war, triggered by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Officials said many of those recruited were allegedly lured by promises of employment, high pay, and opportunities to travel abroad. Reports of Kenyans participating in the conflict sparked public debate and raised concerns within government circles about the safety of those involved and the legality of their participation in a foreign war. Some families in Kenya have also claimed their relatives were misled into joining the Russian military, believing they were taking up civilian jobs. Mudavadi said the Kenyan government had raised the issue directly with Russian officials in order to safeguard its citizens and prevent further recruitment. He emphasized that Nairobi remains committed to protecting Kenyans abroad and ensuring they are not exploited or placed in harm's way. While Russia has in the past recruited foreign nationals into military ranks, the Kenyan government's intervention highlights growing unease among countries whose citizens have reportedly joined the conflict. The war between Russia and Ukraine, now in its third year, has thrown fighters from several countries, either through official recruitment or informal channels. Kenya's latest diplomatic engagement with Moscow signals an effort to curb the involvement of its citizens in the conflict and reduce the risks associated with such participation. Officials in Nairobi say they will continue to monitor the situation and working with international partners to ensure Kenyan nationals are not drawn into the ongoing war in Ukraine. Now with this, we head over to news on Africa. Coming in from the African scene, over alleged unfair trade practices, the United States has initiated a sweeping trade investigation targeting South Africa and 59 other countries as part of a broader effort to address what it describes as unfair trade practices that may be disadvantageous to American industries. The probe, launched by the Office of the United States Trade Representative under Section 301 of the U.S. Trade Act of 1974, will examine whether the countries in question engage in policies or practices that distort global markets and undermine fair competition. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the investigation is intended to determine whether foreign governments are creating an uneven playing field for American manufacturers by allowing unfair production practices to flourish. A central element of the inquiry will focus on the use of forced labor in global supply chains. However, the investigation is expected to extend beyond production practices to include whether countries permit goods produced with forced labor to enter their domestic market. According to Gere, the U.S. government is seeking to ensure that American businesses are not forced to compete against imports produced under exploitative or non-compliant labor conditions. The goal is to ensure that U.S. workers and producers can compete on fair terms, Gere said, adding that the probe forms part of Washington's wider strategy to strengthen domestic manufacturing while addressing global labor and trade standards. The investigations comes amid growing scrutiny by the United States of international supply chains, particularly in sectors where low-cost imports have been accused of undercutting domestic production. Now, if the investigation finds evidence of unfair trade practices, the USTR could recommend a range of measures, including tariffs, trade restrictions, or other enforcement actions against the countries involved. South Africa, along with dozens of other nations named in the probe, could face heightened trade pressure depending on the outcome of the investigation. Trade analysts say the move signals a more assertive U.S. stance on global trade compliance and labor standards, with potential implications for international exporters and multinational supply chains. Further details on the scope, timeline, and specific sectors to be examined in the investigation are expected to emerge as the USTR consults with industry stakeholders and government agencies in the coming month. And with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted for tonight. But before we go, a recap of our major headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we saw Ambazonian General Jagaband killed in Bafut by colonial French Cameroon military on March 14, 2026. Tonight we also saw Cardinal Turkson urges the Cameroons to present reconciliation calendar to Pope Leo XIV in his visit in April. Also tonight, historic Saboga Gardens in Bafut falls into ruin. Also tonight, from African scene, Kenya secures deal with Russia to halt recruitment of Kenyan fighters for Ukraine war. And coming in from the global scene, US launches Section 301 investigation into South Africa and 59 other countries. With that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. On behalf of the entire newsroom, would say thank you for joining. We leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless.